morning, everybody. We're going to get started. We were expecting a few more people. They'll come in the back of the room. My name is John Forgan. I'm the president for the Charlotte region for First Horizon Bank. And I've spent many years in this building as the chamber and the GBA. Officially have no duties with this organization anymore. I'm off the board, so, but I'm still here, right? So talked to Steve and Madison and Patrick, and we thought there was a real opportunity in this community to potentially find ways to help support minority-owned businesses here in this community. We think there's a gap, and as a bank, and what I don't want this to be today is a conversation just about First Horizon. I want this to be a general banking conversation, and because you can go back to your banker. Now, if you want to come with us, that's fine. But if not, we want to give you some information about how you get access to capital, how you run your business, some things to look at, some pitfalls, some stuff like that. The first half of this is going to be more questions with my team, and I'll introduce these folks here, let them introduce themselves here in a minute. And then the second half of this, the next 30 minutes, is going to be really about you and specific questions you might have about your business, things that you want to try to get accomplished, things that you want to find out about, maybe ways of access to things, where are some resources, and we can tell you places to go, things to look for, things not to do. I've probably, in my career, I probably have underwritten 45, 50,000 loans. So over 33 years, I know what's good, I know what's bad. My loans don't charge off, and I help people succeed. These people do the same thing. This is their craft, right? Just like you guys own your businesses, this is your craft, right? Or it's going to be your craft. I brought some experts with me today, and to help us with that. I wanted to thank the GBA for hosting this. We're hoping this could be a series. Do one in the spring and then one in the fall, and maybe do a couple a year, and we can keep building on it. We're going to post some of these videos, the first half online, and the second half will be more private because you can have different, deeper conversations without the whole world knowing what's going on with your personal business, right? So with that, I'd love to turn it over a little bit, just if you want to introduce yourselves and go down the line, and then go from there.
Good morning, I'm Boyd Coggins. I'm a commercial business banking relationship manager with First Horizon. I'm located in Charlotte in our South Park office. So, been in banking for 36 years, 21 with First Horizon. And so, like John, I've looked at a lot of loans and talked to a lot of small business owners, and appreciate the opportunity to share our information with you today.
Boyd's an original Belmont native, correct?
Grew up in Belmont. That's
Grew up
right.
in Belmont, so.
Gaston County.
There you go. He got here quick. Everyone else is stuck in Gaston County.
I knew where I was going.
Latanya?
Hi, I'm Latanya Shoaf, and I am a senior commercial portfolio manager, and I also manage the credit analyst at First Horizons. I'm in the Charlotte office with John and everyone, and I have been in banking 34 years, and I've had a variety of roles. I've been on the sales side and primarily on the credit side, so I've seen both sides of the fence. Look forward to speaking with you.
And I'm Chris Williams. I manage our commercial and business banking team in Charlotte. So I've been with First Horizon for 16 years and in banking my entire career. So I'm probably maybe a little older than them. So I won't say.
We weren't going to say anything.
Right, yeah. So, but no, it's, I'm looking forward to the conversation today. And thanks for everyone coming out. And, it's interesting, the relationship that we build with our clients. And I think that's the biggest thing in banking is you're wanting a relationship. Just like you want a relationship with a doctor or dentist or a mechanic. You want that relationship that you can pick up the phone and just call and ask for advice when you're trying to do something. So.
Chris, just be so you know, Charlotte. We were talking about coming out of Charlotte. We have 7 counties that we cover around Charlotte, so we have the whole MSA. So yeah, they're in Charlotte, but we have certain bankers that just focus on Gaston County, certain bankers that focus on Concord, different markets. But don't tell the other ones I brought the cream of the crop today. Sean, it's on you.
No pressure.
Cream Sean. Okay. All right. Good morning. I'm Sean Golden. I'm a business banker in Charlotte, and I've been with the bank and been in banking 22 years this summer. So,
And originally, you're old school First Horizon because you're from Memphis, right?
From Memphis. Yeah.
So, but What I thought was, thank you to all of you. What I thought would be, we just have a few questions, open it up a little bit of a roundtable. Just talk about a little bit about some things going on that we see. There's a lot going on in the banking landscape. If you haven't figured out the last couple of weeks, you're hearing banks failing,
It's like off the
going
front
on.
page.
And you're like, how does that relate to me? I'm a small business, or I'm someone that's getting started. Well, believe me, it does relate to you. It's all important information. Some of it you can control, some of it you can't control, right? You sort of have to navigate around the bumpy fields of that. But you sort of think about banking, every 10, 12 years, things need to shake out. Well, we're like 10, 12 years in, things have to shake out again a little bit. So, but what we thought from a small business perspective is, how do we help you avoid some of the pitfalls? How do we help you, things that we see, we get the perspective of seeing lots of business plans. We get to see lots of good business plans. We get to see lots of bad business plans. We get folks that are early in the cycle, late in the cycle, just coming out of maybe changing career direction, but have an interest in something. We really want to help people set them up for success, because it's not the first dollar we lend to you. We need to be able to lend you the next dollar, right, and give you and help be a resource for you long term. So we never want to put you in a situation where there's no room to grow, right, or you're strapped against the wall, right. That's not where we want to put you. So with that, I'm going to start with.
And also we have Jorge with us.
Oh, Jorge, I'm sorry, Jorge, I should have announced you. You're in the audience. Jorge is one of our newest business bankers on our team. You wanted to announce yourself? I apologize.
Sure, no, I'm just a child right now. I'm Jorge Lor, been in banking for 17 years. I'm with the commercial team as well, in Charlotte, the South Park area. Been working this market, like the south side of Charlotte area, Rock Hill, for the past, I would say, working with business around 10 years, focusing and doing basically what we're doing right now, advising small business owners what to do in order to help them until to the next part of their business, growing the growing part. So.
Thank you, Jorge. So Jorge was running lots of our branches for us for many years, a lot of our what we call soon to be called stores, and he made the transition because he really liked small business banking to come over to the business banking team. Oh, it's been what, a couple months now?
Yeah.
Yes, correct. 2
I
months.
think he's
to
talked
be
to like
precise.
4,000 people already. But we thought it'd be good for him to listen in. But please chime in when there's an opportunity to present itself, because you have perspective that, I think you bring a different lens to some things as you talk to different business owners, and you have scope that maybe we don't see out of the retail system sometimes as well. So, but let's jump in and start with Boyd, and we can go down the road, maybe asking some questions. And these are unscripted, right?
We asked for questions.
Right.
He's like, okay,
And
I'll get those to you.
Right.
And I said, these are all going to be softballs for you. But, basically, tell us a little bit about some of maybe the best experiences you've had with the small business startups, and maybe one of the pitfalls and one of the toughest businesses that you've had to get off the ground that maybe didn't work.
We've had a lot of good success stories, and what I find is that I'm working with a lot of individuals, business owners that have a passion for the business. It's an area that they've really wanted to focus on. Like Mary, we were talking about your passion for art, and so they'll take that and turn it into a business, and that's been real successful, that they know that what they're doing, they can put together a business plan, and forecast, what their client base would look like, what their revenues would look like, and all that's been real helpful to the businesses. They've been able to be very successful, and we've seen a lot of companies grow, and it's been interesting. As I started out with First Horizon 21 years ago, but when we first started, we were a community bank. We were $100 million in assets. So those clients that I started with then 20 years ago, a lot of them have grown, and we've been able to grow over the years as we've gotten to be a bigger bank, and so that's been real success for me to be able to work with those clients for 20 years and grow with them as they grow, and be able to help them as their needs change over the years.
So, and I'd be remiss to say, we really don't want to talk about all the clients, but it's sort of public that you would know. Boyd has grown with the relationship. If you see an auto bell car wash in the region, Boyd helped build that in the whole region. So he's done them all. He's a pretty humble guy, and but that's one of his bigger relationships, that we do some business with those folks, and it's about relationship. and it's about building that relationship with a banker that's a trusted banker. So thank you for that. Now, is there anything bad that's happened that you say, boy, that didn't work out the way we wanted?
Fortunately.
Don't use their name.
I know. No, I'm still in banking, so I haven't had any real.
No career-ending
I've
mistakes?
inherited
Okay.
a few over the years that I've had to work out, but none that I've had that I've started, from scratch. So.
Okay, so sounds good, boy. Thank you. LaTanya, you have a different lens because you're in our portfolio group, and I had the benefit of working with LaTanya off and on probably for the last 15 years. And we've looked at a lot of deals, and I used to bring her deals.
Right.
And she'd say, what are you thinking? So, but maybe you can share some perspective of some pitfalls, good things, good opportunities, and things that maybe didn't work out.
Sure. A couple of things from a good perspective of businesses that I've seen that have done well. One thing I would say, a lot of the business owners had the vision, but may have not had the financial understanding. So my suggestion, or what I've seen works for them, is to make sure you have someone that's financially savvy with the numbers and the books and the stuff, so you can focus on the vision. Whether it be a bookkeeper or your CPA or an accountant or something like that, so that way you can focus on the business aspect, and then they can focus on the financial piece. There's some business owners that can do both, but I think it's great that that's the key, that you can understand both sides of it. What I found in my role when I was a credit officer and as a PM and even as an RM, is when you just have the vision but don't understand the numbers, or nobody understand the numbers, that's when companies will struggle. I mean, truly, that's when companies will struggle. So, that's the best and worst case I would suggest, is if you don't understand finances, get someone that does understand, so you can focus solely on your vision.
Well, and we use the phrase, I just told someone that opened up a basketball facility in Belmont recently. We told him, and I said, look, man, this is your dream, not mine. I said, so we got to help you get to your dream. Let's focus on your dream, but let's put people around you to help execute on your dream, right? Because I think that's way more important. You have a CPA, a business attorney, and a good bank partner around you, because if not, junk in, junk out, right? You're going to get audited. You're going to have a problem. You're going to have an issue. You're not going to understand cash flow. Something's going to happen, and you need to make sure you got people, because it's not when the good times. Everyone's here for the good times. It's who picks up the phone in the bad times, right? When you got there's a tough putt out there, or you're trying to make payroll, or you're trying to do something. Who's going to do that for you? So, Chris?
Yeah, so I think on the positive side, what Boyd was saying, that building that relationship, it's fulfilling for me as the banker to start working with a company and seeing that company grow, and that seeing their success. And it's always interesting to me to see your company, and I think that's what you have with a banker, is that they will come out and see what you do and understand your business, so that when you are going through the success or through a hard time, they have been there and seen your business and seen your company, and can make some recommendations based on other experiences they've had. But it's very fulfilling to see how creative business owners are in their company. And just, I think as a banker, what we're trying to do is trying to understand where you're wanting to go and where you're forecasting your business to grow, and how we can set a plan to say, if you want to, buy this building, your financials need to look like this before you would be able to qualify. So kind of giving you a roadmap to help you get to that forecast. And if that forecast is, I need additional equipment, I need an additional plant, I need a building now, I'm tired of leasing and I want my own building, then really laying out, here's what the bank is going to look at, and here's the ratios that we're going to look at. And on the downside, I think some owners, where I've seen them have struggles and some failures, would just be underestimating the capital they need to go into their business. That they see, hey, I've got equity to buy this building or to buy this business, and I've got a bank loan, but it's what is the additional capital that you have, what are the additional resources you have when things don't work out exactly as planned or something slows down. COVID, yeah.
We just went through like
No
a once in a
one-
lifetime event. right?
Yeah, no one expected
Knock on
that.
wood, yeah.
And so you can't run to the bank to say, like, we're the, you know, the lifesaver and say, hey, I need a new line of credit. And it's like, you know, so you need to have that rainy day fund for the unexpected events. And also a lot of business owners are really focused on the top line revenue and growing the business, and not focused on, we've seen a lot of times the business revenues grow and your bottom line is shrinking. And it's like, sometimes it gets outside of your ability to manage a larger business. So having those, like Latonya said, having those people in place to help manage it, hiring for your weakness. So if you're great in sales, but you're weak on the financial side or managing it, hiring for your weakness. And so those are the things that I see, is that we see a small company that they start and their accounting system is QuickBooks, which is a good system for a small business. And now their business is $50 million in revenue, and they haven't updated their accounting system or their accounting team. And so they still have the small business accounting team or finance team, but their business is like a mid-sized business now. So just having the other parts of your business grow that may not be revenue generating, but they're helping you manage the business.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think I call it the Walmart effect, right? I think we've all talked about that. You're like, I just landed a contract with Walmart. And you know how many people I've seen out of business within 6 months after they land a contract with Walmart because you cannot handle the flow. You become their super concentration from a perspective. All of a sudden they've gone from 2% of your business to 70% of your business, and now they're negotiating your terms. Walmart's just an example. There's lots of other ones out there that are monsters. You hit the home run, you can't execute, right?
The dog who catches the car.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is exactly,
Yeah.
but it happens all the time, and that's the game, right? That's the big company game, right? So as a small business pitfall, that's something to have. Bankers, we see it all the time, but we're like, because they're telling me, look at my pro forma, I'm gonna go from 2 million in sales, next year I'm doing 58 million, I'm like, that's great, we'll see how you're gonna get there, because cash flow is different. And I think that'll be another question we'll talk about, but Sean, any perspective?
Yeah, I like I guess from a positive perspective of just seeing a business and a banking, just have a relationship. So going from like you calling someone to talking to someone to just them varying your partnership, and I think that's very important in growing a business. Just being able to know that you can call someone or some bank and just bounce something off them, just knowing that you have that type of relationship. A negative, I guess, perspective is just, in my thoughts, just knowing, going to a place or going to a business and just thinking of yourself as a consumer, would I do business here? And that kind of sometimes can help you, because as a banker, I wanted to bank the whole world, especially when I moved to Charlotte. I just wanted to. But my manager here kind of reel that down for me. And, but now, because I'm growing in my role, I can kind of see things. So I just think just making sure that, a business is presentable to the eye, and just making sure that this place is somewhere that I would do business. It kind of helps, like, okay, this is a place that I would bank as well.
So, thank you for that. I think that's a great perspective. Sometimes it's just understanding, would you do business here? Would I come into this place and what's my experience when I walk in? I always think, what's the experience when I walk in the door, right? And I do it when I walk into our branches. If it looks bad, whether it's bad or not, that's the impression that you get when you walk in the door. I try to live by the Ritz-Carlton rule, right? Like, make it right? You try to keep it best in class, the best we can do. Sometimes we're gonna strive for the Ritz, and Steve has heard this a million times. We're gonna strive for the Ritz. I'm okay if it's the Courtyard, but it never could be the Super 8. No offense to anyone already. But we're gonna strive to always be better, right? And at least give a certain level of experience, whatever your business is, whether it's performing an artwork or whatever that is. So we're going to find out a little bit more about your businesses in a few minutes, but I'm going to start with Latonya, because this is this is sort of an interesting one. People talk about, well, my net bottom line this year was X. I made a ton of money based upon I made 10% returns. Well, that's great. That doesn't really matter if you don't have cash flow. Cash flow is everything, right? And if you don't have cash flow, you may on paper are making money, but you're starving the business, or it might be a spot in time when you have money. So understanding that's pretty important. But Tanya, maybe you could talk a little bit about net income versus cash flow, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, generally, how we describe, well, net income basically is, as Chris said, your bottom line. That's what, after you've taken out all your expenses, all your fixed costs, then that's your net income. That's what we say is your cash flow to service debt. And so in looking at that, what I've seen a lot is, say you've been in business for a while, you have one good year. A lot of companies have one really good year. They do one of two things. They either take all the money out and do whatever they're going to want to with it, or they go out and get all this debt or do all this stuff. And that's basically the cash flow. And so then the next year, the bottom line was not as good. So now you've gone and either taken the money all out of the business, or you've, acquired so much debt, which is negatively impact your cash flow because now you can't service based on what you previously had. So when we're looking at it from that standpoint, yes, we look at the net income after your just primary expenses to run the business, but then we have to look at, other fixed costs, whether it be debt, or if you take money, for distributions to live, you also got to remember you have to pay taxes depending on how it is. So, we find a lot of businesses don't take that into consideration. The ones that struggle don't take that into consideration, and not at 1 year at a time. You kind of, as they said before, you kind of look at several years. And so just because you have one good year doesn't always guarantee that the next one will be the same. So a lot of times what we look at is not only cash flow, but as Chris said earlier, someone said earlier about the capital. So if the cash flow slows down, do I have the capital or the cash or the liquidity to help supplement until things get better? So that's when, in my role, that's one of the things that we look at from a cash flow perspective of can they service what they have? Is it consistent? And then if the cash flow is kind of off, do they have the cash or liquidity or sources of, liquid funds to help supplement in the times where it's not so?
So, it's a great point, Liz. I think if you look at a company under probably 10 million in sales, which I think most of 10, 15 million in sales, it's really a closely held company that you're standing it up, right? Your personal guarantee, there's just money moving around in and out of the company. It's really a global cash flow, what you have personally and on the business side in debt, and what you're making on income on personal and the business side is really the wash, right? They're really connected, and people always ask, well, why do I have to personally guarantee? Because that's the way the business is going to work, because we know you're going to move money around until the company's big enough to stand on its own, right? So it's really, it's interesting to see how people think, you're moving things around. And personal balance sheet in this time, if you went for a loan today, if you went to the SBA, they're all going to be personally guaranteed. Everything's going to be personally guaranteed. There's a good chance if you own a home, you're probably going to have an abundance of caution lien on, like a lien on your home, just to make sure they feel good, because they're lending a lot of money to you on a goodwill perspective. Really, they might not have any collateral, right? So they're saying, we're lending this on you, right? And this is on your business plan that you're going to execute on this, and we're going to backstop this, and the bank's going to come here and give you the money, and we're going to maybe back the bank 50%. So that's sort of the way the SBA works. The SBA can approve it on their side, but the bank needs to approve it on their side, right? So, because the bank's the one taking the risk, the bank's going to take the risk on something like that, and they're going to say, okay, you got your personal guarantee, you're worth this much in liquidity, but the SBA is saying, okay, we're going to come in, if the loan goes bad, it's a $100,000 loan, we're going to come in and make you whole on 50,000 of it. We were on the hook for the other 50. So that's why you have two approval processes on the SBA side. So understanding that cash flow is really important. There's something out there, if you haven't done it, it's called a 13-week cash flow model. You should be doing 13-week cash flows. I recommend it for businesses all the time. We make our companies that aren't doing real well do 13-week cash flows. We tell them it's a good practice to get into, to do that, because that gives you a full quarter cycle in 1 week, so you can sort of figure out the whole, how all that cash is coming in and out of the organization, right? So I think that's really a good opportunity to do that, and partners in this county, like Small Business Center at Gaston College, SBTDC is another good partner that we partner with that meets here frequently, right? So there's opportunities for some of that. And then you couple that with your banking partner to build out your package, right? To figure out, okay, here's how we're gonna do this. Before we pivot away too, I wanna talk about leverage with Chris. Because leverage, who's heard the term leverage, right? We've all heard the term leverage. Does everyone know what that means in banking? Well, the financial crisis leverage, the financial crisis was a little different. Think 08, 09. Leverage was how much debt you have versus the income that you have and how much you could sustain, right? So in 08, 09, many companies and banks were going 5, 6, 7 times leverage. Acceptable leverage is south of 3 times, right, of leverage. What we're seeing right now is leverage is doing this on a lot of our companies because people are starting, COVID money's gone, right? You started your business during COVID. COVID money is now gone. There is no more money coming in. So what do? You have to go borrow on a line of credit, a credit card, you're taking out a term loan, you're buying equipment, whatever that is. That's helping you fund your business, which isn't a bad thing, but how much that you're borrowing is really important because if it's going over 3 times, it's putting pressure on your company, your organization, if it's not for a short amount of time. So what ends up happening is you put yourself in a cash flow crunch by doing some of that. So maybe I'll turn it over to Chris to talk a little bit more about that. I know I talked a little bit about it. You
Yeah.
might replicate some of that, but it's important because we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, and so we talk about flexibility of the owner having flexibility in their balance sheet and in their cash flow. And so we look at 2 different leverages. There's a balance sheet leverage and then there's a cash flow leverage. And the balance sheet leverage is measuring the debt you have to the equity you have in the company. And that's kind of showing us what flexibility you have within the assets of your company to manage the debt. And then a cash flow leverage is we look at the funded debt, so not your payables and things like that, but what is kind of bank debt and this would be like if you have a business and they had, the owner had a holdback note, that would go into your funded debt. And so what is your EBITDA? So you take your net income, you add back non-cash items like your depreciation, amortization, and the interest that you've paid that year, and that gives you your EBITDA. So it's earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation, and amortization. And so we look at that ratio of your funded debt to your EBITDA and seeing how much flexibility you have when things don't go, when you had the great year, but then you had a down year. We're looking for flexibility so that you don't have to come to the bank or you're struggling to sell assets to then cover your debt service. So that's the leverage we talk about. And I would say, how important your relationship is with your banker. You also need a great relationship with your accountant. And a lot of times we see hey, when we ask for interim financials, so we're at the end of March, and if you don't have your year-end financials or you're not doing monthly financials, it's like if your year-end financials are 6 months before you see them, it's like how do you know where you are in your company if you're not getting, consistent, accurate, and timely reporting?
We see that a lot.
Yes.
We see that an awful lot. People we don't know if you're making money. You can't tell me you're making money. How do we know if you're making money, right? So-
And checkbook accounting is not a good resource.
Yeah.
So
if you're balancing the cash, it's probably.
I've got cash in my account, so I know I'm good. And it's well, that's not going to help your bank to help you. Like when you go for a loan, and we hear this a lot, is we ask for your tax returns on the company. And it's oh, well, I expense everything so I don't have to pay taxes. And that's fine, that's a strategy. It's not a good strategy to go ask for a loan at a bank.
Right.
Because we're looking at those same numbers that you're sending to the IRS.
Right.
So if you don't want to pay taxes, that's okay, you just probably aren't going to qualify for a loan. So that's why a CPA can help you with, okay, what's your strategy and are you gonna need loans from a bank? You can't write everything off and then show negatives and say, well, my business is great. It's like, and it may be,
Right.
you're just avoiding taxes, and at some point in time that catches up. So those are some of the small business kind of downside that because no one likes to pay taxes, but we all have to eventually. And so those are some of the risk we see.
So Chris, I would say that is something more and more that's happened recently. And it's always been there, cash business has always been there. But the invention of Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, okay, now the government's figuring out that they're gonna find a way to tax you on it.
Right.
So that's coming in, but it's not always there. And there's a lot of people that run a lot of their business and they run it themselves personally. As Chris said, if you don't need to borrow money, that's fine. Do whatever you want. That's your personal accounting. If you're coming to the bank and you're not declaring your Zelle and your Venmo, because I think of places like that were all cash money many years ago, like the straw markets in Charleston, places like that. Now they're all taking Venmo and Cash App and doing all that. They're doing some of those places are doing 5-10 million a year in sales in those little straw markets. It's pretty wild. And if they're not declaring their income, they're going to get audited. They're going to get in trouble. What you don't want to deal with, because you're guilty until proven innocent with the IRS, right? That's the only thing you go. You're guilty. You start at guilty, then you work to innocent, right? It's the way it works. So I would just say, just be very thoughtful about what you're doing. It's not a negative. And the last thing I'll say about leverage, before we pivot away, because I know we need to pivot some other time, is think about where we're at in the cycle. Rising rates, right? So your rates on credit cards and things like that, with your borrowing rates have gone up, right? But people need more money because things cost more, so they're borrowing more. And rates are going up more because the economy's still heating, the economy's still too hot, right? It's where it is. Even after the whole banking thing, the economy's still too hot, right? It's moving. We've got inflation at 6%, it needs to be at 2%. That's what the Fed said it's gonna do. Might have slowed raising rates a little bit because of the bank failures the last couple of weeks, but they still want a quarter. They still want a quarter, right? Everyone's like, oh, they're never gonna do anything. They still want a quarter because we have an inflation problem. You're still paying $4 for a gallon of milk, right? So, or you're still paying $7 because of eggs, and they say it's because of the bird flu, but I think there's more to that too. Anyway, I think those are things you gotta start thinking about. As you think about the total economy, take a step back. And if you get nothing else from me today, is take 1 hour a week from your business, bless you. Take 1 hour a week from your business and go somewhere. Go to a coffee shop, go somewhere else. If you have a business partner or whatever it is, think about your strategy. What are we seeing? What are we seeing? How do we have to pivot to win, right? Because it's about winning and losing. That's what it's all about, right? And how do you do that? But you can't do it on the fly. You can't do it in your pickup truck. You can't do it in your car. You can't do it at the shop. You need to get out of the shop, take the time, do what you need to do to make it your own and help yourself understand, because you deserve that. You put all that energy into a business. You need to feed that business with your mind, right? So I highly recommend doing that, just taking that time. With that, I think we're going to probably shut off the cameras here. Thank you, Gaston County here. And then maybe we can drill in and answer some specific questions for you.